Core standards compared to the state standards. You might be thinking some different questions. What are they? How are they different? And what are we doing to prepare for them? And along with what can you as parents do to prepare your students for these new standards? I want to tell you that, yes, there are some major changes coming. A lot of the content, though, within the standards are staying the same. The thing that we will see a difference, though, is really how those standards are being taught, along with how your students are asked to demonstrate their knowledge. And I'm going to be showing you some sample questions here. So, a couple of things. You're going to hear a lot about being rigorous, and that it's narrowing the focus, but it's really, it's digging deeper into the content. Also, these were created with the whole purpose and focus on making sure that our students are college and career ready, and that those expectations at the university level really are increasing. And so we need to, beginning in kindergarten, beginning in preschool, make sure that we are doing our best to prepare our students for 21st century careers and for the university expectations. Some different things as to answers as to why do we need these new standards. It's really, it is to, if you know or don't know, our state standards are different from one state to the next. This is really a national movement, and it's so exciting to see, and there has been a lot of collaboration in order to create these new standards. Also, like I had mentioned, making sure that they're prepared for careers, for college, and making sure that we have consistent expectations. So, some keywords that I mentioned already: preparation, making sure that our students are college and career ready; competition, the standards are internationally benchmarked, so we aren't just comparing our students from state to state, but really globally, how are our students going to be prepared to compete in an international marketplace. Making sure that expectations are consistent and equal for all. I think one of the things that the authors of the Common Core Standards did such a great job at is they are so much easier, I believe, to read and understand. And something that I also agree with and enjoy with these new standards is you're going to see a very clear progression as far as how they organize the standards from one grade level to the next, and really what is expected from year to year. The collaboration is a huge piece. I had mentioned, the authors of the Common Core Standards are really coming together, but the thing that I like about it is that it's making our teachers really work together. I had talked about the progression from grade level to grade level. I feel here at Davis we're really lucky because we already have our inter-grade level articulation meetings once a month. What does that mean? That means that our kindergarten teachers are spending time working with their first grade teachers, asking what is expected of those students, what do they as kindergarten teachers need to do a better job at to make sure that their students are prepared for first grade, and then the kindergarten teachers communicate that with the preschool teachers. You'll see the states that have adopted. There are 46 states plus DC that have adopted the Common Core Standards. As far as the area in math, and I'm going to talk about math and language arts. All of last year, our staff spent time, during our staff development time, focusing on math. And there was a great focus on the 8 mathematical practices, which you will see. Our staff spent time learning about what are those expectations within the 8 mathematical practices. They even spent time working individually and as a team to answer some of the questions that students are going to be asked, which was a great process for the teachers to work together to realize how different these test questions are compared to our current test questions. Some things that I want to emphasize with you is making the connections across the content and between the content with the 8 mathematical practices. There is a focus on key ideas on each grade level, And I had talked again about the progression from grade level to grade level, that it really does build upon each grade level. And the importance of fluency. There's a slide in here that will talk about the importance from the K through 5th grade to make sure that they understand their basic facts of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and how important that is for our students to make sure that they are prepared for the expectations in middle school. And I gave an example to somebody today that had been shared with me by another teacher, where if your child is saying, I already have my math facts down, I know it. Well, the teacher then shared with that child, pick any of the top baseball players. If they're hitting home runs, do you think that they still skip out on batting practice? I don't think so. Those players are still expected to go and practice and perfect their swing. We still expect our students to practice their math facts on a regular basis. So if your children are giving you a bad time saying, hey, I know this, we need to practice it on a regular basis. Something else, you'll notice the habits of mind. That's something that they discuss within the 8 mathematical practices. And really understanding and being able to demonstrate their deep conceptual understanding of the standards. And you're going to see a problem here in this slideshow that's working with finding the area of a rectangle. The level of questions, though, as to what it's asking that student, it's not just tell me the area. They also have to be able to explain how they got their answer. And that is another key piece with these new Common Core standards, is that they have to be able to write out on a computer, so word process, how they got their answer, justify it, and to show their work. Here are the 8 standards for mathematical practice, and you can easily Google these and make sure that you have an understanding of these. These stay consistent with all grade levels. So in every single standard, they're asking the students to apply these 8 standards. Anything that stands out to you about these, just glancing over these, vocabulary words that stand out, expectations that stand out?
Precision.
Mrs. Brewster?
Arguments and critique in math.
Yes. They might be able to argue really well with you about when they should go to bed or that they should go to a friend, but can they argue with precision to answer a math question? This is highlighting the K-8 standards, and you'll see what I had mentioned earlier, that it's so important that our K-5 students have that solid foundation in real numbers, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Because then they will be asked from grades 6 through 8, and you'll notice when you look up the Common Core standards on the website that is posted on this parent handout, you will notice that they're broken up differently, that there is the split from K through 5, and then 6 through 8, and then 9 through 12. And so what they're going to be asked to do is they're going to have that solid foundation with the fluency, so then they can model and argue and answer these questions. Every single grade level has an overview like this one that you see for 1st grade. And so the design and outline of the standards looks very different to our current California content standards. And you'll also notice there are 8 mathematical practices again. So they're giving you the big ideas. So in 1st grade, for all the grades it lists the operation and algebraic thinking, and then it goes to a big idea of number and operations in base 10, and then followed up by measurement and geometry. They list the key ideas, and then you always want to bring it back to the mathematical practices.
Excuse me.
Yes.
With these new expectations, is this changing how the teachers have taught in the past? yes, there'll be some change, but not a ton.
So Ms. Keller is a fifth grade teacher here on our campus. And just to reiterate what Ms. Keller said, I do believe that Davis Magnet School is a school, staff and students are in a really good place. I feel that what we already have here at our school is preparing our students for the Common Core standards. Where last year and the year before, we've already been asking our students to explain their thinking, and that they have to explain their thinking not just in language arts, but in math as well. So here's a sample third grade math question, and this is part one of two parts for this. And to remind you that third grade will be the first year that students will be tested on, that they will be assessed. Okay, currently it starts in second grade. So it says, below are two angles that are joined together. Down below it says, for numbers 1A through 1D, choose yes or no to indicate whether joining each rectangle to the existing two rectangles would total exactly 99 square feet. So this is the first part that then leads into the 1A and 1D. So what are some concepts that they are going to have to know in third grade looking at this problem?
Concept of area, geometry,
Okay.
multiplication.
Yep. Algebraic expressions. Okay. So then let's look at students would then answer all four questions to provide the teacher an understanding. Now this is an example on this test where it is a multiple choice question. Not all of them will be multiple choice like this, and they will be expected to write out and explain how they got their answer. Now, yes?
How's that graded when they express themselves? I mean, you can't fill out a scan form for that, so how is that graded?
So that's computer generated, and there is a company called Smarter Balance Assessment. So they have created the assessments, and it is graded based on their rubric within the computer. Smarter Balance. Yes.
And they're writing out how they solve the problem, but they're typing it. They're not writing it out.
Correct. Correct. Yes. It's a big difference, and that's why we are pushing the technology purchases so much, because I don't know if you have watched your children on the computer. It's pretty impressive what our students can do, but to be able to type and process where they're thinking about all those different concepts that were thrown out to them as far as the geometry, the multiplication, the algebraic functions, where they're expected to know those in addition to write and create coherent, strong sentences on a computer. But they can do it, and they'll do great. Yes?
So given that they're going to start having all their assessments through a computer as a third grade, right? So I know at home, I just started doing typing, but it's really a struggle. Are you guys gonna be doing that at school as well to help facilitate that transition from writing to typing?
Definitely.
That scares me.
But you know what though? That's why our school is in such a good place, because
Yeah.
we have 2 computer labs. Every single class goes to the computer lab 3 times a week, in addition to the computer time that they have within their classroom. In addition to those laptops that we want to get into our classrooms. I'm so thankful to be here at Davis, where we, I feel, are much more prepared with the resources, plus the teacher and professional development that has been going on to prepare those students.
So they don't necessarily have to be able to type appropriately by third grade, just to have the computer knowledge. They can be typing and
Right.
still do it.
Definitely, but also thinking of the time and thought that's going into that, that whole process, and want to make sure that we're supporting them and helping them get to that point where they're not worried about where is the B on the keyboard. Exactly, exactly. I thought I saw another hand. Yes.
I know, I recall last year, some of the second graders did like trial testing or testing. Is that gonna take place this year, or will it just be third grade and up?
Trial testing here at our
Well, yeah,
school.
like the state.
Oh,
They,
uh-huh.
they had the 2 weeks, I believe it was, or,
So, just to kind of bring it back to Davis and what we have been doing, is that students, that teachers are aware of and have access to the sample questions. And they have also been going through, training to, work with students on those questions. So, I don't know if that answers your question
okay.
or
Well,
not.
I just remember they were doing something, like the second graders, it seemed like in preparation for the third grade year. And I didn't know if that is something that would continue with the new Common Core to ready them or not.
Sure. So just know that with our staff development, both at the district and here at the school, it is focusing on how can our teachers prepare the students,
Okay.
both with writing, reading, and with the math.
Okay.
And then what are ways that we can get our students on the computers as much as possible to get that practice with the technology.
Would it be like, just like the STAR testing, whether it be workbooks or something that you could do at home, whether it was prepping for an actual test that was taken during the year, or just in general, if they needed help in something, that we can do at home when it's like it's going?
There are so many publishers that are loving this whole Common Core movement. Because that means that they get to put the Common Core ready stamp on their book. So there's a lot of materials out there. I would highly recommend, if you're looking, this is a flyer directly from the California Department of Ed, and this information is also, if you go to our district website, you're going to see this same symbol down here, the Common Core Standards. There's a great resource on the left-hand side of the district website. And when you see this symbol, click on it, and it has resources for parents available for you. If you're looking for what you can do as far as resources and stuff, making sure that they're reading, and I'm gonna get into that part next, but there will be a split with the informational text and the literature. They need to be reading, and then you can also look up sample questions, but making sure that they're verbalizing their thoughts and ideas, that they're putting together those strong arguments, and then practicing and really honing in on those foundational skills in math. And you can find the standards online, which are listed on this flyer. And if you have any questions, if you're looking around, because I know there's so much information, feel free to come in and talk to me about it or set up an appointment. And I'm happy to go through the website with you or talk to your teacher if you have questions. Be sure to ask them too. Okay. All great questions. Any others before I move on to language arts? I'm really excited about the new language arts Common Core standards because I think this is what we have already been doing and the movement that we have already been going towards here at Davis. Because you'll hear the common phrase, reading is thinking and writing is thinking clearly within all of our classrooms. And so that has been a message that we have been expressing to our students, that while you are reading, you are being active participants, and that they are messing up the text, and whether it be their literature or nonfiction text, and they are really asking questions, underlining and highlighting key points. I was in a 4th grade classroom today, and they talked about why is it so important that you're not highlighting the entire article. And I know that I myself, when I was a teacher, showed them one of my old college textbooks and said, look how yellow this is and what a bad job I did, because how is this helping me to really understand the key points? So what we're doing here is we're teaching them how to pick out the big ideas, what ahas are coming to mind, And then it's so great to spend time in the classroom to hear the questions that they are coming up with as they're reading, for example, their Scholastic News. And they're reading articles. In a 6th grade class, they were reading an article about these students who have run multiple marathons. And that these are elementary students, and they are creating arguments for and against it. And these Common Core standards will be asking for that, but we're already doing that here. So some things to highlight: the balance, like I said, of the literature and informational text, the importance with the writing, with the argument and informative. So they are arguing for a certain side, and they can also inform you, explanatory, informatory slash informative. And then also making sure that they prove with evidence. So that is a key phrase that you will hear in our classrooms. What is your evidence for your argument? How did you come up with that conclusion? And you too can be asking your students that question at home. They have also included speaking and listening expectations, where students will be expected to stand up in front of a large group and a small group. And don't worry, they're not just going to be thrown up there in front of the class to say, here you go make a presentation. Of course, the teachers are scaffolding their instruction to help those children. But think about in college, in the workplace, how many times are you having to do public speaking, whether it be in a small group setting or a large group setting? And that is a key skill that our students need to have. You'll notice an emphasis on the general academic and specific vocabulary. Also, the last point that's up here on this slide is really teaching and reading across the curriculum. Again, I feel that we're already doing that during our language arts time, there are students who are reading about their topic in social studies. Or, with us being the Math, Science, and Technology School, they are reading based on our science content standards. That we're not out of school where it's like, okay, here are our restricted 90 minutes of language time. Now it's time for social studies time. Now it's time for science time. That our teachers really do a good job of integrating all the subjects and combining those standards. This is just an overview of the reading strand, and so it shows you how it's broken up. And this is a 3-piece part. So what they do too is within the standards there's also a list of appendices. And they have a variety of resources listed in those appendices. One being a list of recommended texts for each grade level. And so what they do is they created text complexity. And they define these on 3 different measures: qualitative, quantitative, and the reader and task. And so when they were choosing their books for each grade level, this is what they used in order to determine that. And like I said, when you look at the standards online, you will find a list of recommended texts for students based on each grade level. This paints a picture. Now it jumps quite a few grades, but when you look at the standards, there is a way to look at it and view exactly from kinder to first to second to third. But this shows you a progression from grade 3 to 7 and then to 11 to 12. So this is on the reading standard, number 3, emphasizing for students to analyze how and why individuals, events, and ideas develop and interact over the course of a text. And it's broken up into 2 different parts: your strand for literature and then the strand for the informational text. So let's look at the grade 3. It asks students to describe characters in a story, for example, their traits, motivation, or feelings, and explain how their actions contribute to the sequence of events. So think about that with our 3rd graders. That's so awesome. And then when they leave us and they go into 7th grade, they're going to be expected to analyze how particular elements of a story or a drama interact. So for example, how setting shapes the character or plot. And then by the time that they leave high school, they will be asked to analyze the impact of the author's choices regarding how to develop and relate elements of a story or a drama, for example, where a story is set, how the action is ordered, how the characters are introduced and developed. But they have to have that base in third grade first. This is an example, fourth grade example. And here is a passage that they might be given. And it's highlighted. So then it might be followed up with a question like this. It says, read the sentences below. Select a sentence from the passage that best supports each inference. They have to know what an inference is, and they do here at Davis Magnet School. That is a strategy and a word that we use all the time. Drag and drop this sentence into the box below the characteristic it best describes. So it says how Janie changes in the story. Janie is jealous in the beginning of the story. Janie is helpful by the end of the story. So what are some things that stand out to you about this question? What do they need to know in order to answer this question? Yes. The technology skill of how do you drag and drop it. Besides the technology, what else will they need to know?
Sequence of events.
Okay?
What the word jealous
Yep.
Supporting
Vocabulary.
ideas, how the ideas are supported, so jealous.
I would encourage you to look up sample questions like I had mentioned, the Smarter Balance, so that you can have a clear idea as to what your students will be asked to do. Because this is a very different question compared to some of the questions in the past of what does helpful mean? Choose A, B, C, or D. What is jealous? Choose A, B, C, or D. Or put these events in order. Our students will be able to do this though. Here is a third grade example. It says, read this text and then answer the prompt that follows it. So the prompt says, the author shows that Bessie is a caring person. Write a paragraph telling how Bessie is caring. Use specific details from the story to support your answer. Skills or strategies that our students will need in order to answer this third grade question. Anyone?
Organize a paragraph.
How to organize a paragraph.
How to support what the question's asking for with details.
And to think about it as they're reading that text. A little bit with the writing. Students will be asked to compose arguments and opinions, informative or explanatory pieces, and narrative text, focusing on what is your evidence, proving with evidence. Also have the ability to conduct research. It will require students to incorporate technology so that they can create and refine and collaborate on their writing. And then also within the appendices, there are student examples for each of these expectations, which I think is another great idea to check those out. Listening and speaking standards, like I had mentioned, having the ability to get up and practice speaking on certain topics and in certain ways in front of small and large groups, and having the ability to utilize technology during that time too. So, wrapping up, how will the Common Core standards be different? It includes the rigorous content and the application of knowledge through higher order thinking skills. So really asking them to dig deeper, to analyze, to think about it, and to prove with evidence. So the performance-based collaborative activities and the assessments, how the assessments are changing. And then, like I had mentioned before, teaching across the curriculum, integrating the different content areas with the social studies and the science. And then it's adding, there's an equal split between the informational text and the literature. And making sure that they can utilize their research skills and their multimedia skills. So some things that you can do is make sure that you stay informed. Do research yourself. This is just one resource, but it is the source coming directly from the California Department of Ed. Check out our district website. And then if you have any additional questions, our teachers are incredibly resourceful themselves and have other ideas and tools that they have been utilizing too. I know this was a lot of information, and once again, it is late and we are spending our time together. So, do you have any questions? And I really appreciate your attention tonight. Any other questions regarding the Common Core?
Just a quick one, like, where would you recommend getting more information, the informational text? Like, I know you guys have Scholastic here, but like, I don't know,
I'm a big fan of student magazines and getting subscriptions to kid magazines. And there are a lot of science magazines. I believe, I can't remember if Odyssey is for the upper grades or not. Odyssey is one, Time for Kids, just so you have the current events. But it's something fun. It's different than a book. And when I was teaching first grade, I would tell them, we'd be on the carpet with our magazines, and I would say, all right, boys and girls, it's time to read our morning newspaper. And just say, pretend you're pouring your coffee, we're enjoying it, and let's dig into our newspaper. And so just to make it fun and interactive for them. But it's so important that they are reading that nonfiction text. Something I would also recommend on your AR, as I know all of our classes from some first grade on up are using AR. I highly recommend that when your child is choosing an AR book, to rotate the genres of books that they're choosing. Because a lot of us, myself included, get stuck in certain types of books that we really love. So, for example, again, when I was teaching in the primary grade levels, I would recommend when they're making that transition into the chapter books, and it might be harder for some students to make that transition, that they can choose a picture book at their AR level. Then the next one would be a nonfiction text, which goes perfectly with the Common Core. Then let's do a chapter book, and then that fourth one would be their choice, okay? For the upper grade students, when most likely they aren't reading those picture books, switch back and forth between the chapter books and nonfiction. And so just to give them that practice, because taking a test and reading nonfiction is so different than reading your favorite novel. Other suggestions from
I
teachers?
was gonna say, National Geographic Kids is a
Yes.
magazine like I absolutely love, but they also have an amazing website. So kids can not only be reading a paper magazine, but they can also be going online. So that's like by far I have a bias.
I would totally, and to piggyback on that, if you have an iPad or a tablet, you can also get apps for those, and they can read
Historia, if any of your classroom teachers have Scholastic accounts, you can be ordering ebooks for your iPad, and then the teachers, we still get credit for those book purchases, so we can buy more books for our classrooms.
And our hope is to go to a online e-library too here at our school. Mrs. Brusick, and then
I just wanted to say very quickly that at some future meeting, just like this one, we will quite likely be discussing the next generation science standards, which were adopted by the state of California on September 4th. And there will be lots of information forthcoming, because just as the Common Core standards are changing the approach to how we want students to do their learning and thinking and their work, so will the next generation science. More to come.
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher.
I know this is, I'm guessing you can already answer this question, but I'm just curious for things like the kids' National Geographic. Is there, like Gavin, it's like pulling teeth getting him to read a chapter book, even complete, even if he says he likes it. Is there AR quizzes for like National Geographic? I mean, do they do mini ones to like get kids motivated in something like that? Because it's educational.
There are some of the National Geographic short books that they have are
our AR. So the best website I like to go to is just AR Bookfinder. I
Okay.
just type it in Google.
Okay.
And yeah, you know that site very well. If you just type in books or genres, it will give you a list. I always tell my students, like, I understand we want to track their AR points, but reading is more important than AR points. So if you can find a book that he will read or a text that he'll read, I think your teacher's gonna understand AR points. And maybe
He's
that's
in fifth
me
grade now.
saying that,
He's
but.
too old to do AR. He's in fifth grade. He's out there now, so.
Oh, nobody's too old.
I know.
Too old to
This
do
is the
AR.
word I'm getting from him. Thank you.
Keep reading with your children. Make sure that they practice their math facts. Ask them, prove with evidence. I would also recommend buying Post-it notes, little Post-it notes, because as they read, they can make notes within their book with questions and ask your students, especially in the upper grades, because they are learning about different type of text marks. I forget what, I was in Mrs. Ramos's 4th grade class today, and she had a little tiny printout. It was on like a little 3x5 card. And so it was just like a little key to show if they put 3 question marks, which is the gate symbol for unanswered questions, or an exclamation mark. So the 3 questions, obviously they had 3 question marks. They obviously had a question on that part of the text. An exclamation point means, aha, like I need to go back. This is a really important point. This is something to share. But we really work with our students on messing up their text, making it look sloppy, so that they're asking questions. It's showing that they're really thinking about their reading. You too can do that with your child at home with those Post-it notes. And make it fun for them. Somebody had made a little heart that was their favorite part. So that's fun for a student, just different little symbols or something, but it's showing you that they are reading. And you can also use that line, reading is thinking. We're not just sitting there zoning out. You're thinking while you're reading, and writing is thinking clearly. Thank you so much for your time and your patience tonight.